Hey YouTube, if you can't tell from the echo, I'm in the basement, and today we're planning on trying to get this basement floor acid stained. Now what an acid stain will do is it's going to kind of take this unique pattern that's in the concrete and it's going to change the color of that, and you'll end up with kind of a marbly look, but it'll be whatever color of acid that you choose. And what we have is more of a brown earth toned type acid that we're going to put on this floor, and that's going to end up being the end product on the concrete floor down here. So over the last couple of days we swept the floor multiple times and vacuumed the cracks of the floor and vacuumed everything up as best as we could, and we also used a putty knife to help scrape up the caulking. There was some construction adhesive that fell on the concrete floor that we needed to scrape up in multiple locations. And then we followed that. We ended up getting a mop bucket and a mop, and we tried to, mop and scrub the floor to get it as clean as possible. So after we got it really clean, we went back and we decided to use this etch and clean, which is kind of suggested for especially smooth concrete floors that aren't very porous. And since ours was power trowel and it's got a nice smooth finish on it, we decided to use this etch and clean from Eagle. And we mixed that up as a 4-to-1 with water, 1 of the etch and clean and 4 parts water. And we put that in our acid pump sprayer that we bought. And we sprayed that on the floor and we scrubbed it with some scrub brushes. And we scrubbed and cleaned the entire floor with this etch and clean, and that basically took us a few more hours right there just to get that done. Then we ended up squeegeeing the entire floor off, getting all the water down the drains and out as much of the water as we could, getting it all rinsed off, and then we let it sit overnight to be able to dry. So we are going with a Eagle brand acid stain. We were able to purchase this off of Home Depot, and it was shipped here for free. Read a lot of reviews on different acid stains, and this seems to be pretty popular for people to use. Like I said earlier, this will be more of a earthy tone, kind of a brownish red, hopefully in the end. We'll just have to wait and see how it turns out. So here's all the different colors that Eagle offers in an acid stain, and we are using the color in the upper right hand corner. That's the rustic acid stain. As you can see, that's a pretty dark earth tone compared to some of these other colors. Now for the acid, we're using this, it's basically a pump sprayer that's made for acid staining. It's a smaller capacity, but it's way heavier built. And then the acid we're putting on pretty heavy. We're putting on 1 gallon in 200 square feet. So you put it on pretty heavy. So what we're doing is we've got a spray bottle, a cheap spray bottle here, like for weed sprayer, and we're just doing a very light mist of water on there because it says to dampen the concrete. So I just barely dampening the concrete. I really don't want any puddles or any standing water, but just a little bit for it to soak in, and then we're following that up with the acid stain. And making sure not to go all the way to the water line here. That way when we do our next water spray, we're not spraying the water onto the acid stain that we just did. So as you can tell, the farthest back is the darkest, and the lighter up is almost kind of yellow, and then it'll just keep on darkening as it sits there. It's a pretty neat little process. Some of the places in the concrete with this stain almost turn like a black, and some are more of a reddish sandstone kind of look. It's pretty neat. I'm hoping when we scrub it all off it looks the same way as it looks now as we're putting it on. So also kind of not trying to spray in any kind of pattern, just kind of get it all covered, and then I go back and kind of swirl it around and put on a little extra in spots. So seems to be working pretty good. Try to hit the cut lines pretty heavy since they weren't taken earlier, and try to overlap where our other spots were. So right here is where I sprayed the water last time, and I'm going to go ahead and spray that on. That's maybe a little heavy, but I'm trying to make sure not to spray on top of the acid that I just sprayed down. We just want a little bit of this water to soak in, you know, the concrete, just to dampen it. Just going real light. That's why I'm using this instead of a garden hose. Garden hose would put on way too much water, so we're using this pump sprayer. Went and bought this for like 10 bucks. It hadn't been used for any chemicals yet. It was brand new. But it'll just moisten the concrete enough to do the acid stain. So we just got done applying the acid stain on our first section of the basement this morning. As it works, it'll slowly darken. So you can see the back of it's the darkest, and it'll slowly darken as it gets to where we sprayed it last. And if you can see this crack looked pretty dry this morning, but you can see right here that the acid stain just does not like to sit there. I just don't know if it's just going down the crack and not staying on top, but it definitely doesn't seem to be wanting to sit around these cuts in the concrete. So hopefully when we go back and do this next section, we'll overlap that, and we're hoping that it'll stick that second time around. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, we got the acid stain all on. Went and cleaned up the pump sprayer, and now we just got to wait and see how it turns out. As far as the cut lines are concerned, I had some other spots back by the bathroom back there that were moist, and they seem to take the stain okay. I think that the cut lines are just allowing the acid to go down the cut and not puddle there, and so I think the lesson learned there is I may have needed to have the cut lines filled up, you know, with some self-leveling caulk or something like that before applying the acid stain. But I just definitely overlapped it multiple times on the cut lines. We'll wait and see how that turns out. As that acid stain works, it ends up kind of creating a bunch of dirty material that you need to clean off the floor. So then we got to use this concrete degreaser and neutralizer, and the way I understand it, it's an alkaline soap. So the soap will help clean off the concrete, and that being alkaline will help neutralize the acid. So we sprayed that on the floor, and we scrubbed it, did a quick scrub, tried to squeegee out the majority of the dirty material that is created by the reaction with the concrete. And then after that, basically you need to keep on scrubbing and cleaning until it passes a white rag test. So we ended up renting a floor polisher with a nylon brush, and we scrubbed the floor multiple times, and then rinsed and mopped until we got all the suds and everything up. After we cleaned the floor, we let it sit for 24 hours. We wanted to get good and dry before we applied this sealer. Now the sealer really deepened the tones of the concrete, helped it look a lot better, look glossier, and it helps protect it. So we ended up using a pump sprayer to kind of spray the sealer on lightly, and then went over it with a paint roller and just kind of rolled it out nice and smooth. And we ended up applying 2 coats of this. So in the camera, the concrete is not appearing as dark that it actually is. It is actually a lot deeper and has a lot more black or darker tones in it. And but what I'd like to point out is where the acid was pooled up, where you sprayed extra on and it kind of formed like a puddle. It went the lighter color, at least on this stain, and it did these oranger spots. And you can see this one's pretty well defined. You can see where the acid was, and it kind of ran off this way in like a little stream, and that kind of gives it a unique look. And you can see over here like this, and these oranger spots are definitely where the acid was puddled. Not sure if I'm real happy with the way that looks, because I kind of would not want as much orange in this floor, or that red. It's actually more of a red color in real life, a rusty red. So I'm not sure if I redid this again, that I'd probably go a little bit lighter maybe on the acid stain so that I didn't make those puddles. But if you're looking for that, different type of look, definitely, applying the acid heavy like we did, will give that effect. So after it's all done and said, this floor was very labor intensive. It was a nightmare is how my wife put it, to be honest with you. It was just, there was so much cleanup beforehand and there was so much cleanup afterwards. So we each had about 40 hours worth of labor in it, and there was about 2 hours of that was staining. The rest was all prep and all the cleanup. It was very hard. We scrubbed and rinsed probably 7 times on the floor to try to get it clean before we sealed it. So I mean, it's very labor intensive, but when we put in our own labor, it was cost effective. It was less than $1 a square foot for us to finish this basement floor the way that we did, and that includes all of your cleanup, chemicals, equipment, your stain, your sealer, everything that we had to do, the rental of the floor polisher, all of that. We were still under $1 a square foot, providing our own labor. So I think it was a lot of labor, but after it's all done and said, I think we're really going to enjoy this floor. It's going to have a very unique look. And it should be a very durable floor to last our lifetime in this house. So I think we're really happy with the end result, even though it was painstakingly hard to get there. Thanks for watching.